Good morning and welcome back. It is 9:14 right now on Q13 News this morning. What is evil? What is it really? And who is evil? Who's really actually evil? For that matter, what's good and who is good? Really and completely good?
Those are just a couple of the weighty questions raised in the critically acclaimed new book right here, The Spider and the Fly, by Seattle author and journalist Claudia Rowe. The book chronicles the unraveling of a serial killer as he's captured, tried, rots away in prison. But more than that, it tells the story of Rowe's own, how to say this, conversations as she's locked in this unusual and frightening relationship, non-romantic relationship with this killer that goes on for years.
And Claudia Rowe is nice enough to join us this morning to fill us in on this. First, tell us a little bit about the killer itself.
Sure. Kendall Francois was an African-American man who confessed to killing 8 white women in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is a Hudson Valley town in New York State. He confessed in 1998. These murders had gone on for several years.
So when I read this book, it's phenomenal. One of the best things I've read in a very long time. So congratulations.
Thanks.
It starts as a true crime. I mean, it's you as a reporter sort of covering a murder case and being interested in it, but it quickly becomes something very, very different.
Right. The book is not really traditional true crime in the sense that it doesn't provide sort of an algebraic equation for this happened and then you get evil. But what it really is a memoir of my conversations with Francois and what they taught me about evil and also about myself and the meaning of this case in a larger context. There were many sort of social issues that were raised by this case, at least in my mind. And my goal had been to sort of demystify this evil. You know, we hear evil or monster. It's true. It's not that it's not true. But my idea was, but as a person talking, what does that mean? You know, these serial killers are sort of held out as like these rarefied evil forces. And you don't get the sense usually that this is a person who had a childhood and grew up. And what is it to talk to that person? And that's really what I learned through talking over the course of about 4.5 years with Kendall Francois, sort of how he saw the world, how he reacted to the world, and sort of where he was coming from, not as a rationale for the horrible things that he did, but as a way to sort of demystify and bring down to earth, this is a person who acts out of sort of a human logic. And that was very new for me at the time when I did all this. I was a much younger reporter. And I, like many people, had this idea of evil as this sort of monolithic force. And this was really bringing it much closer, most down to a human level.
A personal level, too. I mean, you get incredibly personal in this book, and it seems to me that there comes a time when you're interviewing him and speaking with him that you find, I think I'm oversimplifying it to say common ground, but it speaks to what you're talking about, where it's the human condition, and it led you to ask some questions about yourself. What are some of those questions that you're kind of, indicating that we should all maybe look inward when we're thinking about evil and these sorts of things?
What it helped me understand is we are all the product of fairly complex and very powerful forces in our growing up, in our communities. And whether a person sort of sees us or not as kids. Kendall Francois was an enormous man, well over 300 pounds, at least 6'4". He was a huge guy, but he was not seen, really. He was just sort of this silhouette. And similarly, his victims. They were women on the street. At the time when all this came out, they were referred to only in one way, drug-addicted prostitutes, and that's it. And nobody ever saw them either. Who were they really? And there's quite a bit in the book about how you get to be that woman on the street. And that struck a number of parallels with me in my own growing up, which was fairly difficult at times. And the process of doing the book really helped me understand we need to look at each other more closely, much earlier and much deeper, really with more compassion. I do believe that if people had seen Kendall Francois really as a kid, there were red flags. Similarly with his victims, if somebody had really tried to see them more than just ignore them as these troubling women on the street, I do believe some of this terrible destruction could have been avoided.
Claudia, as I said, I've read the book. It's really phenomenal. You're actually signing copies of the book tonight at 7 o'clock at the Sorrento Hotel here in Seattle. The book is also available for purchase at bookstores. I've seen it. You said you saw it at Costco.
I saw it at Costco this weekend, and that was a thrill.
That was, I'm sure. Also available online wherever books are sold. I cannot recommend this book enough. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me in, you guys.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you, Claudia.
Thanks.